Bloody oath. This changes everything. This really does change everything. For those of you who don't know what I'm on about, let me give you a rundown of what Eason posted in the Blitz news channel. For those of you who don't know, Eason or whatever the frick his name is, he posted a video, or not a video, sorry, he posts leaks about Blitz because he's a data miner. Surprise, surprise. Funny how I get most of my information from him and not from Wargaming themselves, despite the fact that I've signed an NDA, as in a contract, with Wargaming. Pretty crazy stuff. Anyway, Eason said that these Polish TDs are going to be something else. They really are. They genuinely are going to be something that I never thought would be possible. I never thought that we're going to come to this day. Have a look at what Eason posted. Let's assume that the T10 Polish TD has 900 alpha and a 12.9 second base reload. Okay, this is what he's writing. Now, he doesn't know the stats. Again, this is all speculation. This is based on what Wargaming have posted and what he has been able to data mine. Now, given Wargaming's numbers that they've given, right, if the tank is 70 meters or less in front of you, you're doing 100% more damage. It's pretty crazy. If the tank is 105 meters or less, you're doing 70% more damage. If the tank is 150 meters or less, you're doing 40% extra damage. And if it's 720 meters away, well, I honestly, I don't know how that's even possible. 720 meters, that's like ridiculous. Or less, you're doing 30% more damage. So, in essence, the closer the tank is to your gun, the more damage potential that you're going to be able to do on top of what your regular alpha damage is. So the mechanic that Wargaming are introducing for the Polish TD specifically is the closer the tanks are, the enemy tanks are to your gun, the more damage you're going to be able to do on top of your average damage. That's pretty crazy to think about it. That's a pretty crazy statistic, if you ask me. So he's broken it down. Basically, under 70 meters, you're doing 900 alpha damage. Keep in mind, 900 alpha damage with 4,186 DPM. And of course, I'm talking. This is what I'm talking about when I say, what do you call it? 900 alpha is the standard AP shells. The standard AP. Now, keep in mind, this tank, the T10, the Błyskawica or whatever, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the T10 Polish TD is, but I believe in World Tank's PC, it's got like 172 millimeter gun. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it's 172 or 176 millimeter gun. So it makes sense that it's going to be doing 900 alpha damage. But the way they've balanced the tank is, yes, it's got 172 or 176 millimeter gun, but it doesn't do that 900 alpha outright. You have to be as close to a tank as possible to then ensure that you're doing that 900 alpha shot. That's the key. And if you're doing that, your DPM is about 4,186, which is pretty crazy. If a tank is 105 meters or less in front of your tank, but more than 70 meters, you're doing 630 alpha damage. You're doing 630 alpha, and that gives you 2,930 DPM. Okay? Now, if you're 150 meters or less, but you're over 105 meters, you're doing 360 alpha with 1,674 DPM. Which doesn't make any sense, does it? I think Eason has gotten the numbers wrong. I think what's happened here is Wargaming are introducing a mechanism that allows you to do more damage the closer you are on top of your average damage. I don't think Wargaming are going to introduce something, introduce a tank that does 360 alpha with like 176 millimeter gun. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's basically, you're basically limited. Like if they do this, right? And like if you're over 150 meters away, which a lot of tank destroyers are, let's face it, especially if you're camping in a bush or something, right? you're doing 270 alpha damage, and that gives you 1255 DPM. That's ridiculous. Like, this whole mechanism, if this is what Eason is saying, and it comes out to be true from Wargaming have basically turned a tier 10 tank with a 176mm gun. It's a 170mm gun, okay? It's a 170mm gun. That does 270 alpha damage every time you fire an AP shell. That's ridiculous. That you can't have that. That's absolutely crap. It's crap alpha damage. Like, the amount of backlash that Wargaming will get from this is pretty crazy. Like, if they legitimately introduce these new polished TDs with this mechanism, if anything, you're just going to cause outroar. You're going to cause... People are going to get upset. People are legitimately going to get upset at you at the fact that you're not following protocol. You're introducing something that's pretty radical. That's a definite radical change. Now, I like how we said, like, make of that as you will. Like, what is there to make out of it? Honestly, like, this, if Eason is correct, this is pretty crazy. This will be the worst tank destroyer at tier 10. At a distance. It's crazy to think about. Honestly, I don't think Wargaming are going to introduce a mechanism like this. I think what they're trying to insinuate, and I think Eason has gotten the maths wrong, is that if the gun is right next to the enemy tank, or like 70 meters away from the tank, so very close range, and you fire that shot, most likely you are going to do 100% more damage on top of your average damage. That's what I think is going to happen. I think that's what the mechanism is. Not, if you're 70 meters out, you'll do 900 alpha, but if you're like over 150 meters away, you're only going to do 270 alpha. No. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is it's 100% extra damage, 70% extra damage, 40% extra damage, and 30% extra damage. That's what I think is going to happen. That's what I think is supposed to happen. So in other words, you're doing 130% extra damage if you're this distance, 140% extra damage if you're that distance, 170 extra damage if you're that distance, and 100% extra damage if you're that distance. That's what I think the mechanism is. I don't think Wargaming are going to make this tank specifically only a close range tank destroyer, because then it just defeats the purpose of it being a tank destroyer. It defeats the purpose of being a tank destroyer. If Wargaming are going to introduce this tank as a short range brawler for the sake of making sure that people don't camp in this tank, then that's just crazy. Like, I understand the Badger. The Badger is really good in close range, especially if you're on a hill, right, and you're using your full gun depression. Fair enough. You can use your armor profile, you can use your DPM, and you'll be able to make mincemeat of those enemy tanks if you know how to play it properly. Right? But the difference is that that tank can do the same amount of alpha damage whether a tank is right in front of it or a tank is 720 meters away. It makes no difference. My point I was making is that this is going to be a huge change, and it may or may not make way for other mechanisms like this to be introduced into Blitz. And I reckon it's going to make some drastic changes happen. I reckon we're going to see some questions being asked. That would be my take. I reckon there's going to be questions being asked. I reckon Wargaming are not going to do this because, like, this is ridiculous. Like, that's crazy, man. That's crazy stuff. That is crazy, crazy work. To think that a tank is only going to work at short range, especially a tank destroyer, that's pretty crazy, man. And then if you're over a distance of 150 meters, which a lot of tanks are, especially tank destroyers, right? A lot of tank destroyers are, and you're only able to do about 1255 DPM, that's insane. That is such a crap. That's tier 5. Actually, no, scrap that. That's like tier 4, tier 5 levels of DPM. That's ridiculously low. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Also, can I just point something out real quick? Why the frick do cyclists, like Uber Eats cyclists, go the opposite direction on a one-way street and have no lights whatsoever? And it's lucky that I didn't freaking hit the bloke, right? He's very lucky I didn't hit him, because I couldn't see the bloody bastard. Anyway, enough of the tangent thing that we're talking about. My point is, if Wargaming decide to introduce such a mechanism in Blitz like this, what makes you think they're not going to do it to other tanks? What makes you think they won't do it, for other tanks, tank destroyers, for instance? If they're going to do something like this. Like, at short range, yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be very beneficial for you. But the longer range you are, the worse your tank is going to be. You're going to perform really badly. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Honestly, I don't understand. I don't understand why they can't just introduce the tank and the tech tree line like they did in Water Tanks PC. Why the freak do you want to introduce some stupid mechanism that either we're confused as frick about it and we're completely wrong about how it's supposed to work, or this is exactly what's going to happen and Eason is right, like he usually is a lot of the time, and we're going to get a tank destroyer that just does not work at more than 150 meters. That's pretty crazy work, man. That's crazy. That's crazy work to think that's even possible. That's insane. Honestly, I don't know. I honestly don't know what to... Like, legitimately, I don't know what to say. Like, I am genuinely shocked. Like, going through the numbers and whatnot and crunching the numbers, I'm genuinely shocked. I don't know what to say. Like, that's crazy. Crazy stuff. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know your feedback. Let me know in the comments down below if you think this specific mechanism change and the way the gun performs, and if Wargaming decide to introduce it the way that Eason is saying they're going to introduce it, how do you think this is going to affect Blitz and the gameplay at Tier 10 and even Tier 9 and Tier 8? How do you think this is going to affect gameplay? How do you think this is going to, like, would you accept these changes in Blitz? Would you say outright that it's bullshit and you don't want to see it? I want to know what you guys have to say about this and whether or not it's a good idea or it's a bad idea. And what would you do? If you were Wargaming and you were in Wargame's position, you want to add these Polish tank destroyers into Blitz, how would you do it? Would you just do it like I would and just introduce them the way Water Tanks PC introduced them, where, they're just normal freaking tanks? Like, it's a normal tank destroyer line. Why are you going to introduce these weird mechanisms that make no sense whatsoever? Or are you actually, excited for these mechanisms and you're saying, it might actually be beneficial? Let me know in the comments down below. Ladies and gentlemen, look after yourselves, look after your friends and family, based in the Middle East and everywhere else in this beautiful world. And as always, I will catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.